Okay, so let us start our today's session. So this is your second introductory session of the subject, that is data visualization. Welcome to the video introductory video session of data visualization. I am Vishal Parekh. So as you are knowing that this subject is being shared by the two faculties, Munira ma'am and myself. So you have seen what are the different types of concepts, or what are the different types of content that you are going to study in this particular subject. And you have also seen what are the different prerequisites that are required for studying this subject. So, is anybody knowing what are the different prerequisites that are required to understand this particular subject? What are the prerequisites that are required in order to understand this subject or to smoothly study this subject? If anyone is knowing, they can write in chat. Yes. So we especially require some of the knowledge of any of the programming language. The programming language can be Java, it can be Python, any. Then we require some of the knowledge of HTML, we require some of the knowledge of JavaScript, and we require some knowledge of jQuery. Now, our today's agenda will be to cover some of the topics. So, what are our today's topics that we are going to see? So, let us first see what are the different outlines of our today's content. So, our first outline will be what is HTML5, what is the use of JavaScript, and what is the use of jQuery. So these three prerequisites I'm going to cover here today. So what is the exact use of HTML? If anyone is knowing, they can tell what is the actual use of HTML. If HTML is not there, then we can work or we can't work. Anyone is knowing, they can write in chat. Okay, to make web pages. So this answer is correct. So you until now you have studied the programming language in which you haven't created any of the web applications. So whenever you want to create any web applications, so you require front end. So in order to create the front end, we require HTML. So there are in market there are various frameworks that are available for working with front end. So until now you have studied is the backend portion, that how you can write a code, how you can work with databases. Now we want to make interaction with the user. So with the help of this, that is HTML, we can make it smoother, we can make it very easier. The second thing comes is JavaScript. So what is a JavaScript? So JavaScript is mainly used for, somebody say that it is a scripting language. Yes, it is a scripting language. But what is the actual use of JavaScript? So consider a scenario. For example, if you are viewing your GTU results, so at that particular time, what you are doing? You are selecting your semester, you are selecting your, and you are entering your enrollment number. And one thing, if you observe, you are entering some of the captcha codes that are available. Now, by mistake, if you enter one or more characters wrong, it will show you an error at that page only. So whenever we want to make any validation at client side, I don't want to interact directly with the server, or I don't want server to make any validations. And in order to make it smoother, we require JavaScript. And the second thing we will study is what is the use of jQuery. So first, let us start with HTML. So what is HTML? So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. But in the outline you have seen, we are not covering HTML, we are covering HTML5. So first we need to understand what is HTML. So again, HTML is Hypertext Markup Language. Can anyone tell me HTML is a case sensitive or case insensitive language? Anyone? Whether if I write H capital or if I write H as a small, does it make any sense? Anyone else? Only two participants from the list have given their answers? Anyone else? Yes. The HTML language is case insensitive. That means if I write HTML, if you can see on your screen, whether if I write in lowercase or whether I write in uppercase, it won't make any changes. It will consider it as a same. Now, what is the difference between HTML and HTML5? That we need to understand. So the traditional HTML approach was available, that in which we can create pages. But for example, if I want to include multimedia inside my project, or for example, if I am having a web page in which I want to include my YouTube video, so is it possible? So if you consider traditional approaches, there are no such tags for handling or for rendering different types of media. So at that particular time, we require HTML5. So what does the HTML5 provide? So HTML5 provides a rich multimedia tags and so on. But we need to just know what is the difference between HTML and HTML5. So in our due syllabus, that is in data visualization, we will work with HTML5. We won't work with HTML. So first, let us understand how a particular HTML structure looks like. If you observe any of the HTML page, so if you want to observe it, simply type in your browser google.com, right click over there and click on inspect element. So at that particular time, you will see what are the different tags, what are the different actions they are using, what are the different tags, how the animations has been applied, what are the different portions a particular region is covering. All you can get idea with the help of that. So the basic structure remains like this. So the first change come is a doc type HTML. So what is doc type HTML? We are covering in few minutes. So a general structure would be, first we have to write doc type HTML, and this is mandatory whenever we are working with HTML5, and it must always come before HTML tag. So if you want to make use of HTML5, you first have to specify doc type HTML. Again, this doc type is case insensitive. If I write in caps or if I write in lowercase, it doesn't make any difference. So this is your root element. So there are different elements that we are using in HTML. So the main root element is HTML. Now, can anyone tell me that without head, I can write my web page? Is this head tag a mandatory tag? Anyone? I think this basic structure you might have studied in your subject, web programming. Anyone is knowing, they can write in chat. Is this head tag a mandatory tag? The answer is no. This head tag is not mandatory. Now, I can give you a scenario where the head tag is mandatory. For example, if I want to include any of my JavaScript code, if I want to include any of my libraries, at that particular time we usually use head tag. In HTML, the only tag which is mandatory is your body. Now, why body is mandatory? Because whatever the text that you are using or whatever the content that you want to display on your web page, all are enclosed within this body tag. So body tag is mandatory, head tag is not a mandatory. So please remember this. If anyone asks whether the head tag is mandatory or not, it is totally optional. If you write, it's fine. If you don't write, then also it is fine. The mandatory thing is your body tag, because at the end, the thing which you are going to see is this tag only. Now, what is the use of this title tag? Anyone is knowing? What is the use of this title tag? Anyone, if you are knowing, they can write in chat. Okay. If you want to give the title to your web page, for example, if I am at my home page, so in browser, if you observe, there are different tabs you have opened. So if I want to give a name to my tab, at that particular time, usually use the tag which is named as title. And this is the text that you will see whenever you have written the title. Again, The title comes inside the head tag only. Now let us understand some of the concepts that how what is the use of this doc type and all that. Now the first thing, whenever you are writing any of the codes, for example, if you are writing any HTML code, there are two different extensions. Any of them you can use. The first is you can say is HTML or .html. Any of them you can use, both will work. So whenever you will write this type of extension, it means this is your HTML file, and only the HTML content are visible to your browser, or we can say only if the browser understands the language which is HTML. Can you say without HTML can we work? For example, if I want to create a scenario based application, it is mandatory to have knowledge of HTML. Anyone? Of course, yes. Why? Because if I want to make any interactions with the user, how can I provide user interaction? So, in order to provide user interactions, we require the knowledge of HTML. Now, what is this doc type? So, if you recall this previous slide, we have written over here that is doc type HTML. So, let us understand what the actual meaning is of this doc type. So the doc type, the full form is the type of document that you want to use, and it helps your browser to display your web page. That means, for example, if I have created different web pages and I want to include some of the different libraries, or if I want to use some of the content which are depreciated in previous version, but now I want to use. So if I want to use this, all I have to specify is doc type. And after doc type, if I want to use HTML, then after doc type, you have to specify what you want to use. For instance, if I want to use an HTML5, so how will be the syntax? So the syntax will be exclamation, doc type, and HTML. So whenever this tag n is encountered by your browser, it understands that you are declaring an HTML5 type content. So in our programming, the programs that we are going to cover, in this, we are going to use doc type HTML. It sends that is HTML5. Why we use HTML5? Because we are having a syllabus or a curriculum in which we are going to plot different types of data. We are going to use different types of APIs, and this all the APIs are responsive. Now, what do you mean by responsive? Anyone is having? If you have heard the trend that nowadays the websites are responsive. So, what do you mean by responsive websites? Anyone is having any idea? They can write in chat. Okay, Nainavi, work with any device. Yes. Anyone else? They are knowing why they are using responsive, or why the web has become responsive. Okay, Naisargi, changing the web page size, content size, also changes. Perfect. So the nowadays the trends are going that we are having different size of devices. So in order to make it very interactive, that means if I am opening my particular website in my, for example, my mobile device. Now if I am opening it inside my iPad, so it should fit that particular size of your screen. Why? Because it will make this particular page more interactive. And the second tag comes here is body. So whenever you are using this body tag, whatever content you have written inside your body, it will be visible inside your browser. Next thing we are going to see is graphics. So you have observed many websites that if I want to involve graphics, if I want to draw graphics, so there are two different alternatives that are available. So the first is HTML5 canvas, and the second available is SVG. So SVG stands for Support Vector Graphics. In our further lectures, we will cover in detail how we can work with Canvas, what are the different ways how we can use Canvas. But in brief, I can tell you what is an HTML5 canvas. So we are aware that in whenever we are used to draw something, we are buying a canvas in your, for example, in your design engineering sheet, the sheets that you are buying, it can be considered as canvases. So whenever you want to implement the same thing inside computer terminology and in specific inside HTML, we are having a tag which is named as canvas. So what does this canvas allow? So if I want to draw, for example, graphics, if I want to provide animation to that graphics, if I want to draw any of the pattern, if I want to write a string, so all this thing is provided by the canvas tag. And in simple terms, you can define canvas tag as it is a container that allows you to draw different shapes. And the second alternative approach available is SVG. So SVG stands for support vector graphics. So again, if I want to draw graphics, the second option available is SVG. So in detail, we are having a detail of canvas tag in our syllabus. We will cover the overview of SVG, but in detail in unit number 3, we have to study this canvas tag. So in our later lectures, we will see how we can work with canvas. The next thing that we are going to see is CSS. So do you think if there is no CSS, your website will look good? Anyone? No. Why CSS? Because if I want to provide some of the styling, if I want to make it more interactive, you have used different types of elements. But in order to provide some of the formatting, in order to provide some of the various design, or in order to make it look and feel very efficient, we require CSS. So what does CSS mean? So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. The file extension of CSS will always be .css. Now, in computer terminology, if I want to say what is the CSS, so it means it will describe how your HTML page should be displayed to your end users. Now, what are the different alternatives that are available for applying CSS? So there are three different alternatives: external CSS, internal CSS, and inline CSS. And this particular thing you will be going to study in detail in your subject, that is web programming. And this all, so in short, I can say if you are having a good knowledge of web programming, the more smoothly you can work with data visualization, because all this is your prerequisites. Next, we are going to study is JavaScript. So I think this is again a new thing for you as you haven't studied JavaScript. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between Java and JavaScript? What is the major difference between Java and JavaScript? You have studied Java, you are studying advanced Java. Then what is the difference between this Java and JavaScript? Okay, so is saying both are different language. Yeah, it is both are different language. But what is the major difference? Can anyone tell me if you are knowing? JS is used for front end. Yes, we can say that JavaScript is used for front end. Okay, so you have studied different types of programming language. You have studied object oriented programming language, you have studied procedure oriented programming language, and the thing that you are going to study this is a JavaScript. So the name itself suggests it is a scripting language, and there is a difference between Java and JavaScript. So an instance I can give you, for example, in Java, you have studied different OOPS concepts, that is inheritance, polymorphism, and so on. But in JavaScript, there is not requirement of this particular concept. So the major difference come over here is you don't require the knowledge of OOPS concept. If you are knowing, it's fine. The another thing major difference comes is for executing code of Java, you require JVM and so on, while JavaScript it doesn't require. Now let us see some of the evolution of JavaScript, why JavaScript has evolved. Or before the name of JavaScript, it was first known as LiveScript. And then this LiveScript was acquired by a company which is named as Netscape. And then they changed the name from LiveScript to JavaScript. Why they have changed? Because the syntax, for example, the operators that you are using, the declaration thing of a function, it's nearly same as that of your Java programming language. The loops that you are using, all the things remains same as that of your JavaScript, same as that of your Java. So it was named as JavaScript. Now, this JavaScript executes on your web. Again, it is a lightweighted, it is interpreted, it is open source and cross-platform support. That means if I have written this JavaScript code in Windows OS and if I want to run it in Linux or if I want to run it in my Mac OS, it will work smoothly. And the major advantage is it can be easily integrated with your HTML. So if I want to provide a validation that whenever user enters his contact number, for example, mobile, for instance, so it should be exactly 10 digit. It should not be less than 10 digit. It should be of type number. So all these things you can implement is with the help of JavaScript. Next, what is the syntax of JavaScript? So, in detail, you will study JavaScript in web programming, but the concept that programmatically I and Madam will be going to teach in this JavaScript will be used from your lectures. So, whenever you will study in web programming, but in order to understand the concepts and the codes of this data visualization, you must know what are the different types of tags, how I have integrated JavaScript inside my data visualization and inside the HTML. I'm just giving you an overview. I'm not going to cover entire detail of JavaScript and jQuery. But right now I'm going to cover the things that we are going to use more frequently in our codes. So the first thing is whenever you want to write a JavaScript code or we can say JS code, we have to write that code inside a tag which is named as script. Now there are two different ways of writing the script tag. You can write the script tag in your body tag also, or you can write it inside your head tag. But as per the industry standards, usually we place this JavaScript code inside our head tag. Now, what is the syntax? So first you have to open this angular bracket, you have to write script. Then inside this you have to write any code that you want for JS and then you have to end your script tag. Now, whenever we are using a script tag, there are two attributes. So the first one is optional. If you write, it's fine. If you don't write, then also it's fine. But the second attribute, that is type, is mandatory whenever you are working. So let us consider an example. So you can see over here, I have taken an example of JS. So as I have told, assume that this particular script tag is inside my head tag. So the first here will be your head tag. Inside this head, I have taken a tag that is script. I have specified the language as JavaScript and I have specified the type. Now, why we need to specify the type? So whenever I will specify the type, it will understand that the code which is written inside the body of this script tag, it is of this particular type. Now we have written over here that is text slash JavaScript. That means I want to write the code which is supported by the text and I want to use make of JavaScript. So this is a sample of how we can just declare that we are going to use JavaScript. So this particular code you can write inside your body tag or you can write inside your head tag. But we will try to make use that we write it inside the head tag. Next thing we will see is variable. So what do you mean by variable? What do you mean by a variable? Anyone can write in chat if they are knowing what is a variable. Okay, value that can vary. Or in simple terms, we can say that we are assigning, or we can say it is a container for storing different types of data. Now, whenever I want to declare a variable, so you have studied Java. Inside this, there was first you have to declare the type of the variable, then you have to give variable name, and then you have to assign its value. Then you have come across the Python language, in which you are simply using the variable name and you were assigning the value. But whenever you want to declare a variable in JavaScript, we have to use a keyword which is named as var. So how will be the syntax? So first you have to specify the script, language equal to JS, type equal to text slash JavaScript. Now I want to declare a variable. So how can I write? So first I have to write var keyword, then I have to give my variable name, and then I have to assign its value. Now the question will arise, so how this particular, or what will be the data type of a particular variable? So depending upon the value that you are assigning to a variable, this particular type of the variable data type will be. That is, for instance, I am writing var where name equal to, I am enclosing it within double quote, that is data visualization. So the data type of this variable name will be string. Again, the data types that you have studied in Java remains the same in JavaScript. That is integer, float, boolean, strings, all remains the same. But in order to declare, you have to use keyword, that is var, followed by your variable name. Then if you want to assign the value, then you have to use equal operator, and then you have to specify the value. Next thing you require is the knowledge of loops and the use of control statements. So there are three types of loops that are supported by JavaScript. So the first is while loop, second is for loop, and the third is for with in. So this for in we have studied in Python. This for traditional we have studied in Java, and while also we have studied. So the syntax nearly remains the same. For example, if I want to write a loop, so how will be the syntax? So for example, if I want to write a for loop, so first you have to write for, then you have to write in. For example, if I want to write in, so let us consider an example. So for example, if I want to write syntax for, so first we have to write for, then you have to use round bracket. For declaring a variable inside the loop, you have to write your var where keyword, because it is a mandatory thing to declare a variable. So first you have to write var, then you have to give your variable name, that is I, then you have to give semicolon, then the syntax remains the same for traditional for loop. For in, the syntax remains, that is for, then you have to use a variable, that is, for again I am using for var where I, then you have to write in, and then you have to write again a variable name. So what it will do, that the variable you have specified over here, it will take one by one value from there and it will assign it to I. So this is your for with in, and the syntax of while loop remains the same as that of your other programming languages. And there are two control statements that are available. So the first is break, second is continue. So I think these all concepts are clear to you. Only the change will come here is the way of declaration. Rest all the thing remains the same. Next thing comes here is how we can declare a function inside a JavaScript. So for declaring a function, I have to first use a function keyword. So with the help of function keyword, we can declare a function. So let us consider an example. So first you have to write your script tag, then this parameter, that is attribute language, is optional, but this is mandatory, that is type equal to text slash JavaScript. So for example, if I want to declare a variable or inside a function, so first I have to declare a function. So for that we have to use first a function keyword, then you have to give your function name, and then you have to specify the parenthesis. And inside this, if you observe, I have written parameter list inside the square bracket. What does it mean? It means the parameters are optional. If you write, it's fine. If you don't write, it also works. And then you have to write your functions body. And inside this JavaScript, each and every statement ends with a semicolon. So please try to follow this thing. Whenever or you are declaring a variable or assigning a variable or doing any of the thing, you have to end it with a semicolon. And in previous sem we have studied Python. So there you were using tabination, but here again we are going to use is curly braces. So in order to define our functions body. And then here I have ended my script tag. So in detail, you will study in web programming, but just whenever we will study data visualization, we require JavaScript from a scratch. So just I am giving you overview. Inside the code, you will easily understand how this particular thing is working. Next thing comes over here is DOM method. So what does DOM means? The first question is, so DOM stands for Document Object Model. So for example, I am having a tag which is named as paragraph tag. Now with the help of JavaScript, I want to write something inside this particular tag. So first I need to identify that particular tag. So for that we are having a method that is get element by ID. Now, how can we access this method? So first, let us understand the syntax. So document, that means the current document that you are using, dot get element by ID. For example, if I have declared a tag, for example, I have written here p tag, and I have given the ID to this tag something as, for example, p1. So in order to assign the ID, I have to first use, so the handwriting I might think you won't be visible, but I have written this as ID, then I'm using equal, and then inside double quote, I'm giving the ID to this particular tag. For example, I'm giving it as P1. Now, what I want to do is, I want to write something inside this particular HTML tag and I want to display it on my browser. So how can I do that? So for that, first thing you need to identify the particular tag. So to identify the particular tag, we are having two different approaches. We can either use ID or we can either use class. If you use ID in one particular page, there should be unique ID. That means if I have taken P1 as ID and I have assigned it to a P tag, this ID cannot be assigned to any other tag. Now what I want to do, I want to store something inside this tag. So first I have to access this particular tag. So to access this, I have to write the syntax, that is document dot get element by ID. This is case sensitive. Please remember JavaScript is a case sensitive and it follows the concept of camel case that you have studied in Java. So get G is small, then element by ID. And inside this, you have to specify your ID. That means P1, which is enclosed within double quote. And it is always mandatory. And the parameter it will hold will be always of type string. The next thing is, now I want to write something with the help of JavaScript. So for that we are having a write method. So how we can use that is document.write, and inside this simply if I want to write hello, then in double quote just write hello. It will print on your body of your particular tag. So this we will study detail in your web programming. And the next thing comes is jQuery. Now, why we require jQuery if I am having JS? Anyone is having any idea why we use jQuery? Okay, one thing you can say is animation. Any other approach why we use jQuery? Anyone else knowing? So jQuery is again the first JavaScript was invented. After that, jQuery has came. So the major advantage of using jQuery is, again we have to write less and do more. And again jQuery is a library of JavaScript. So whenever we are having a built-in library, we can do much more than writing the code. So the next thing is, what are the different features of jQuery? So it provides us HTML manipulation as well as DOM. So majorly we will be focusing on this, this, and somewhere we will require the knowledge of Ajax. So the major features are, it provides a manipulation for your DOM, CSS, the different types of events. We will somewhere require knowledge of Ajax. Ajax stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. We will study wherever we will require Ajax. And this jQuery is not in detail in your syllabus in any, I think, web programming or in this data visualization, but we require jQuery in order to display our graphs, in order to provide smooth animation, in order to call different libraries. So there are two different ways in which you can work with jQuery. The first approach is you can directly download it from its official website, that is jQuery.com. And the second approach is you can include jQuery from content delivery network. That means we are having a path. So from that path, it will directly execute that particular library and it will show you the output. So if anyone is having doubt up till here, they can ask me. In this particular thing, if anyone is having any doubt, they can ask. For data visualization, you will require two books that ma'am has already told you. In next session, we will see how programmatically we can observe this all the things. If anyone is having any questions related to this, they can ask inside the chat. I will reply.